Only a few punches were thrown in yesterday's opening Olympic match between Algerian boxer Iman Khalif and Italian boxer Angela Carini before Carini dropped out, which is a rare occurrence in boxing. Now, the entire match lasted 46 seconds. Many are raising their eyebrows at the Algerian boxer Iman Khalif. Khalif was disqualified during the 2023 World Championships and sanctioned by the International Boxing Association for failing to meet gender standards because of high levels of testosterone. The president of the IBA said at the time, quote, "Based on DNA tests, we identified a number of athletes who tried to trick their colleagues into posing as women. According to the results of the tests, it was proved that they have XY chromosomes. Such athletes were thus excluded from competition." But the International Olympic Committee cleared Khalif to compete anyway in the Games, saying, quote, "Everyone competing in the women's category is complying with the competition eligibility rules. They are women on their passports," and it stated that this is the case, that they are female. Now, after the match, the Italian athlete said, quote, "I felt a severe pain in my nose, and with the maturity of the boxer, I said, enough." Carini then said, quote, "I am not here to pass judgment or pass judgment if an athlete is this way, and in that sense, it's not up to me to decide." The Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni criticized the match, saying that she opposes allowing female athletes to compete against athletes with, quote, "genetically male characteristics." Khalif fights again on Saturday. There's also one more athlete, Lin Yu-ting of Taiwan, who similarly failed a gender eligibility requirement and was stripped of a bronze medal last year. She will compete in her first match tomorrow.
Now, many conservatives online were furious with the results of the match. Outkick founder Clay Travis tweeted, quote, "Every Democrat leader says this is perfectly fine. The man is a woman. It's way past time for choosing on this issue." Now, Olympic medalist Sharon Davies tweeted, quote, "The IOC are negligent in their duty to care to female boxers, knowingly putting males with a huge advantage in the ring with females."
And these were hardly the only people to speak of. My social media feed right now is nothing but outraged, many of them conservatives, others as well. J.K. Rowling, who obviously the Harry Potter author, has been very outspoken on issue of trans people in women's spaces, said, could any picture, has a picture of the two boxers. "Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life ambition he's just shattered. Hashtag Paris 2024. A lot of commentary from people on the right noting that this is a man, describing this as a man beating up a woman and for sport, which is very despicable, detestable. I will say, so this person, this athlete, does not identify as trans, just identifies as a woman.
Right.
In Algeria, it is illegal to transition, I understand. Now, this person failed prior tests to determine what I think they're best described as an intersex person, probably, for having high levels of testosterone, certain genetically male characteristics that many people would probably argue that they should not be competing against women who don't possess the same biological characteristics, would seem to be most fair.
Right. Now, the IOC does provide a framework to international federations, but it's non-binding. So they didn't do any testosterone tests. We know that much. They said they did biochemical tests. And we know that neither of these athletes identify as transgender. I think it's a very interesting scenario where you have had a lot of conservatives argue that athletes need to compete with their gender assigned at birth. There are situations where people are born intersex and they are not transgender, and they are assigned a sex at birth that is the closest to how their body developed. And I think that exposes some cracks in this argument that you have to compete with the gender assigned at birth. And it does give some credit to the people who are saying the best way to determine fairness in terms of sports and the advantages you have that are gender-based are tests of testosterone, are tests of hormones and testosterone present in the body. It seems to be much more clear-cut given that.
Well, right, but this person previously failed those tests.
Right, that's true. And I think that it would be much better if we had consistent testing for all athletes of testosterone if we're going to have a scenario where people are competing, we have transgender athletes, that has been determined. 2 years of HRT in many cases is what equalizes the playing field. And testing the testosterone levels is important as well to ensure that it's working and it's consistent, because there are always outliers. And for some, sometimes you're still faster. They've done tests of track and field sprinting after 2 years. And so for some sports, it could be 3 years. But really, understanding that biology is more complicated than we just have a gender assigned at birth and we are that gender.
I mean, in 99% of cases, it's not more complicated, but there are certainly outlier cases where it is more complicated. Yes.
And it seems like we have 2 outlier cases here that are good examples for why these standards need to be fleshed out, and that it's not so clear cut. And when we start assessing gender in this way, this probably wouldn't have been as much of a conversation or a question if we didn't have the huge debate around transgender athletes, because they're women on their passports, they have the same gender they were assigned at birth. Why were they even being tested or questioned? I don't know that this would have happened 10, 20 years ago. Because
it's in elite physical competition spaces. Look, you can be a woman for your passport. I'm not trying to take that away from anyone. I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's self-identification. Identify however you want. I support and affirm you. I don't care at all, even in the slightest little bit.
That's nice.
I want the same protections and treatment. We're talking about a specific aspect of human socialization, of competitive sports, where the differences between men and women are significant. In most ways, like our legal system does not in most ways recognize differences between men and women, as they should not. But there are some ways in which men and women are different, and in terms of competitive physical ability, that is one of them.
Yeah.
And so you have to separate men and women in sports, even from a young age, if you want it to be competitive at some point. And now we're getting to, you're right, a tricky situation where this person did not transition, so they're not under the transgender category. However, they do have a natural biological advantage in terms of higher testosterone levels that should probably mean that they're not competing against biological women. And maybe that's just like in your case, you don't do that, or you're with other people of similarly advanced testosterone levels or something like that. It's a difficult situation, but it just seems very clear to me that this person should not have been in this match.
Yeah, we want fights to be fair, and except in the case of Maduro and Elon Musk, but we want generally fights to be fair physically. We want athletes. It's not a real competition if one person's much stronger than the other person, and I think that I'm curious to know what biochemical tests they completed to determine this.
I mean, for boxing, they even do
testosterone.
They even do you're in a weight class, and additionally, it's not just like let's just set aside the women's issue. Let's just say men's boxing, men boxing each other. It's not like any man goes up against any other man. There's like very strict criteria for you're in this weight category against some boxers want to lose weight, want to slim down so they can fit into they can be the heaviest person in exactly this narrower weight class to fight. So it's like my point being, it's very carefully litigated who you are allowed to compete against in boxing as a sport. And so I would think that would preempt inclusion of this person, and I understand why everyone was so upset about it.
Right. Yeah. And Adams, who is the IOC spokesman, spoke to this and said, testosterone is, in reference to the testosterone test, it's not perfect. Many women can have high testosterone, even an amount that would be called male levels. Similarly, males can have low testosterone, similar to women's levels, but they can still be women with high testosterone and compete as women. So the idea that you test and you do one for testosterone and you're not considered a woman anymore, he's really questioning that people are calling these women transgender when he says this was not a transgender issue. There's been some misreporting on that in the press. And so I think this is gonna really rock conservatives' minds, hopefully J.K. Rowling's, about what it means biologically to be a woman. Because sometimes a woman has high testosterone. How do we grapple with that? So very interesting. I hope there's some reflection there, but I'm not sure that it will be. I think something like this is going to be taken as just more fuel to the political fire on the transgender issue.
That does it for us today on Rising. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure being with you all this week. That does it for us. Tomorrow is Rising Fridays, and I actually have no idea what's happening today, but tomorrow, presumably someone, Amber and someone else. Is it you, Jessica?
Nomiki Khan is coming up.
Is that who it is?
And our producer will correct me if I'm wrong, but yes.
Okay.
Former TYT host. Yes, Nomiki Khan. She is someone who ran for public office. She's kind of a known progressive media figure.
Cool.
And I think I'm excited to see her do the show with Amber.
All right, we'll try that out.
So be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss that or any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we are available wherever you get your podcasts.
And Jessica and I will be back next week. See you then.
See you Monday. Bye, y'all.